She was 7 months pregnant, standing on a private tarmac, watching her husband throw her luggage off his $50 million jet. Why? To make room for his 28-year-old mistress. But here's the part that makes this story unforgettable. The pilot sitting in that cockpit, the man who witnessed every humiliating second, he was her own brother. And he had known about the affair for 11 months. What happens next will shock you. Because this pregnant wife did not cry. She did not beg. She bent down, picked up her baby's tiny yellow onesie from the concrete, and folded it perfectly. Then she declared war. A dying billionaire father-in-law with explosive secrets. A mistress who shows up begging for forgiveness. Hidden offshore accounts worth hundreds of millions. And a courtroom battle that exposes everything. This is not just a story about betrayal. This is a story about a woman who lost everything and built something better from the ashes. Stay until the end. Trust me, you will not see the final twist coming. Get her bags off my plane. 5 words, just 5 words. But they shattered everything Sloan Whitmore had believed about her life. She stood on the private tarmac at Westchester County Airport. The September morning was crisp and golden. The kind of morning that usually made her grateful to be alive. The kind of morning that whispered of new beginnings and fresh starts. 7 months pregnant. Her hand resting on the curve of her belly where her daughter had been kicking all morning. Excited maybe, sensing her mother's anticipation about the trip ahead. The Maldives, an overwater bungalow with glass floors so you could watch the fish swim beneath your bed. Their 5-year anniversary celebration. The baby moon they had planned for months. Sloan had packed so carefully. Maternity swimsuits in soft colors that made her feel beautiful despite the extra weight. Comfortable sandals for walking on the beach. Sunscreen safe for pregnancy. A silk dress for their anniversary dinner. And tucked into the corner of her largest suitcase, a tiny yellow onesie with elephants printed on it. A little piece of their daughter for the trip. She had imagined showing it to Preston on the beach, holding it up against the sunset, talking about names and nursery colors and all the dreams they were building together. She had imagined so many things. I said, get her bags off, now. Preston's voice cut through the morning air like broken glass. Sloan turned slowly. The movement felt underwater, dreamlike, because this could not be happening. This could not possibly be real. Her husband of 5 years stood at the bottom of the private jet stairs, tall, broad-shouldered, the same man who had swept her off her feet at a museum fundraiser. The same man who had promised her forever in a garden full of white roses. The same man who had cried when they saw their daughter's heartbeat for the first time on the ultrasound screen. He was not looking at her. He was looking at the ground crew. 2 young men in Navy uniforms who shifted uncomfortably under his gaze. Mr. Whitmore, one of them started, the luggage is all ready. I do not care where it is. I want it off my plane. There is not enough room. Not enough room. Sloan's mind struggled to process the words. The Gulfstream G650 could seat 19 passengers comfortably. There was more than enough room for 2 people and their luggage. More than enough room for a husband and his pregnant wife, unless there was someone else. The black SUV pulled up behind her. Sloan heard the door open before she saw it, heard heels clicking on concrete, smelled perfume, something expensive and floral and young, something that did not belong here, something that did not belong in this moment that was supposed to be theirs. Chelsea Vandermeer stepped onto the tarmac. 28 years old, blonde hair that caught the morning light like spun gold. A body that had never carried a child, never stretched to accommodate new life, never felt the ache of growing another human being inside you. She wore white linen pants and a crop top that showed her flat, tan stomach. Her smile was easy, confident, the smile of a woman who knew she had already won. She carried a single Louis Vuitton bag, just one, because there was only room for one person's luggage now. The first suitcase hit the concrete with a dull thud. Sloan watched as the zipper burst open from the impact. Her maternity clothes spilled across the tarmac like secrets exposed to the light. A silk blouse in pale blue. The comfortable sandals she had agonized over at the store. Her prenatal vitamins rolling across the ground like scattered pills. And there, fluttering in the jet exhaust like a wounded butterfly, the tiny yellow onesie. It tumbled across the concrete, caught against a wheel of the luggage cart. The elephants on the fabric seemed to be reaching for each other, trunk to tail, mother and baby, together. The second suitcase followed. More clothes, more carefully chosen items, more pieces of the life she thought she was living. Chelsea walked past her without a glance. Her fingers moved across her phone screen. She smiled at whatever she was reading. She climbed the stairs of the jet that the Sloan had boarded 100 times. She disappeared inside like she belonged there, like she had always belonged there. Preston! Sloane's voice came out strange, too calm, too quiet, the voice of a woman in shock, the voice of a woman whose brain had not yet caught up with what her eyes were seeing. What is happening? What are you doing? He finally looked at her, and she saw it, the thing she had been refusing to see for months, maybe longer, maybe years, the coldness, the calculation, the complete absence of the man she had married. His eyes moved over her body, over the belly that held his daughter, over the face of the woman he had promised to love and cherish until death parted them. And there was nothing there. No guilt, no shame, no hesitation, just impatience. Like she was a problem to be solved, a line item to be deleted from his spreadsheet. I am simplifying, he said. He straightened his cufflinks. Cartier. She had given them to him last Christmas. She remembered wrapping them in silver paper with a gold bow. Watching his face when he opened the box, the way he had kissed her and said she knew him better than anyone. Lies. All of it. Lies. Chelsea needs the space, he continued. His voice was casual, businesslike, the same tone he used when discussing quarterly earnings with his board of directors. You can take commercial. I will have my assistant book you something. Commercial. Like she was a stranger. Like she was nobody. Preston. She tried again, her voice cracking now, the shock wearing off, the reality starting to sink in. I am your wife. I am carrying your child. We planned this trip for months. This is our anniversary. Plans change, he shrugged, actually shrugged, like their marriage was just another meeting to be rescheduled. I will have someone bring the rest of your things from the house. My attorney will be in touch about the details. The details, like their 5 years together could be reduced to paperwork, like their daughter was just another asset to be divided. You cannot do this. Sloane's hands were shaking now. Her whole body was shaking. You cannot just... I can do whatever I want, Sloane. His voice hardened, the mask slipping, the real Preston emerging from behind the charm and the money and the perfect life he had constructed. That is what money does. It gives you options, and I am choosing a different option now. He started up the stairs, paused halfway. Look back at her one more time. Do not make this difficult. It will only hurt you in the end. And then he was gone. The door of the jet closed behind him with a soft click. Such a quiet sound for the ending of a marriage. Such a small noise for the destruction of everything she had believed. Sloane stood on the tarmac, her clothes scattered around her like debris from an explosion. Her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. Her daughter kicking frantically inside her, sensing her mother's distress. The jet engines began to whine. The exhaust heat washed over her face, hot and dry and smelling of burning fuel. She watched the yellow onesie flutter in the wind, watched it tumble across the concrete toward her feet, the tiny elephants reaching, always reaching, and then she did what she always did when her world was ending. She bent down, her pregnant belly made it awkward, her back protested, her knees ached as she lowered herself toward the ground. But she picked up that tiny yellow onesie, she shook off the dust, and she folded it, perfectly, precisely. Creases, sharp and even, the way her mother had taught her to fold things when she was 7 years old. The way she had folded her father's flag after his funeral. The way she folded laundry when she could not sleep. The way she folded napkins at dinner parties when she was nervous. Her hands knew what to do when her mind could not. Fold, crease, smooth, fold again. The world was ending. Her marriage was over. Her husband was flying away with another woman. And Sloane Whitmore was folding baby clothes on a tarmac like it was the only thing that mattered. Because in that moment, it was. In that moment, the folding was the only thing keeping her upright. The only thing keeping her breathing. the only thing standing between her and complete collapse. The cockpit door of the jet opened. Griffin stepped out in his pilot's uniform, navy blue with gold stripes on the shoulders. Her brother, her protector since they were children running through sprinklers in their mother's backyard in Stamford. He had taught her to ride a bike, had threatened every boy who looked at her wrong in high school, had walked her down the aisle when their father was too sick to stand, had cried at her wedding, had been the first person she called when she found out she was pregnant. He saw the luggage first, the clothes scattered like casualties across the concrete, the burst suitcases lying on their sides, the prenatal vitamins rolling toward the edge of the tarmac. Then he saw Chelsea through the cabin window, settling into one of the leather seats, already pouring herself champagne. Then he saw Sloane standing alone, 7 months pregnant, holding a yellow onesie in her shaking hands, her world collapsing around her in slow motion. His face cycled through emotions she could read like a book. Confusion first, then recognition, then horror as the pieces clicked into place. And then something else, something that made her stomach drop, something that made the ground shift beneath her feet. Guilt, deep and drowning, the kind of guilt that comes from knowing, from keeping secrets, from standing by while someone you love walks toward disaster. "Get back in the cockpit," Preston's voice came through the intercom. Muffled but unmistakable. "We leave in 10 minutes. Griffin did not move. His jaw tightened, his hands curled into fists at his sides. "Sloane," his voice cracked on her name. Two syllables that held a lifetime of love and a confession she was not ready to hear. "I should have told you. God, Sloane, I should have told you months ago." Months. He had known for months. The word echoed in her head, bounced off the walls of her skull. Months. Her brother had known for months that her husband was having an affair, and he had said nothing, done nothing. Let her plan this trip. Let her decorate the nursery. Let her believe in a future that was never going to exist. "Griffin." She could barely get his name out. "What do you mean? What are you talking about?" "I wanted to tell you. Every day I wanted to tell you. But he threatened me. My career, my family. He said he would destroy everything if I said get in the cockpit." Preston's voice was sharp now, angry. "We have a schedule to keep." Griffin looked at the jet, at the closed door, at the life he had built flying planes for men like Preston Whitmore. Then he looked at his sister, at the scattered clothes, at the yellow onesie clutched in her hands. "No." He said it quietly at first, then louder. "No, I am not flying that plane. Not today, not ever again." He walked toward her, his footsteps heavy on the concrete, his pilot's wings catching the morning light. Behind him, she heard Preston's voice through the jet's door, muffled and furious, threatening lawsuits, threatening to end Griffin's career, threatening everything he could think of. Griffin did not look back. "Come on," he said softly. He put his arm around her shoulders, careful of her belly, gentle with her broken heart. "Let me take you home." The jet engines roared louder. The plane began to taxi toward the runway. Through the window, Sloane thought she saw Chelsea taking a selfie, champagne glass raised, smile bright. She tucked the yellow onesie into her purse. She stepped over her scattered clothes without looking down. She walked to Griffin's pickup truck without looking back. She did not cry. Not yet. The tears would come later. In the middle of the night, in the shower where no one could hear, in the quiet moments when the shock wore off and the grief rushed in. For now, there was only the folding, the careful, precise folding of things that were broken, the muscle memory of survival, the small acts of control when everything else was chaos. The jet lifted into the sky. Sloane watched it go through the truck's window, watched it become smaller and smaller, a silver speck against the endless blue. Her daughter kicked against her palm. Once, twice, 3 times. "I know, baby girl." Sloane pressed her hand against the movement, against the life that was still growing inside her despite everything. "I know, everything is different now, but we are going to be okay, I promise you. Somehow we are going to be okay." She did not know if that was true. She did not know if anything would ever be okay again. But she said it anyway. Because sometimes you had to speak the future you wanted into existence. Sometimes you had to make promises before you knew how to keep them. The truck pulled out of the airport parking lot. The tarmac disappeared behind them. The scattered clothes and burst suitcases left behind like the wreckage of a plane crash. Sloane closed her eyes, let the movement of the truck rock her. Let her brother's presence anchor her to something solid. She was not okay. She might never be okay again. But she was still breathing, still folding, still holding on. And for now, that would have to be enough. The leather seat of Griffin's pickup truck was cracked and worn. Coffee cups filled the holder between them. 3 of them, all from different days, all forgotten in the chaos of his life. An air freshener shaped like a pine tree hung from the rearview mirror. It had stopped smelling like pine months ago. Now it just swung with the movement of the truck, back and forth, a silent metronome counting the miles, a world away from private jets. They drove in silence for 7 miles. Sloane counted the mile markers, counted the white lines on the road, counted the telephone poles as they passed, counted anything that kept her mind from processing what had just happened. Griffin's hands gripped the steering wheel so tight his knuckles had gone white. His jaw was clenched, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. He looked like a man heading to his own execution. The silence stretched, heavy and thick, full of all the things that needed to be said but could not find their way out. "How long?" Sloane finally spoke. She did not look at him. She looked at the dashboard, at the small crack that ran along the bottom edge, at the dust collected in the vents. Griffin's breath, quote, she heard it, a sharp intake that told her everything she needed to know about what was coming. "Sloane, how long, Griffin? I need to know. I need to hear you say it." Another mile marker passed, another white line, another telephone pole. 11 months. The words hit her like a physical blow. 11 months. Almost a year. She had been living a lie for almost a year, decorating a nursery for a family that was never going to exist, planning a future with a man who had already planned his escape. The baby kicked. Hard. Like she could feel her mother's heart breaking. Like she wanted to remind Sloane that she was still there. Still real. Still worth fighting for. 11 months, Sloane repeated. The words tasted like ash, like something burned and ruined. "You knew for 11 months. You watched me plan this trip. You watched me buy baby clothes. You watched me fall more in love with a man who was already sleeping with someone else. And you said nothing." "Sloane, please. Let me explain." "Explain?" Her voice rose, cracked. The shock was wearing off now, the numbness giving way to something sharper. "Explain what, Griffin? Explain why you let me live in a fantasy while my husband was having an affair? Explain why you flew them around the country together while I sat at home believing every lie he told me?" Griffin pulled off the highway, found a quiet road, parked the truck under a tree whose leaves were just starting to turn gold. September, the season of change, the season of things dying. He turned to face her. His eyes were red, wet, the face of a man drowning in guilt he could no longer carry. "It started with a flight to Miami," he said. His voice was raw, desperate. 11 months ago, I was flying Preston to what he said was a business meeting. Just him, like always. Sloane remembered that trip. November. She had been newly pregnant, just 8 weeks, still keeping it secret from everyone except Preston. He had kissed her goodbye that morning, told her to rest, told her he would be back by dinner. We stopped at a private hangar to refuel, and she got on, Chelsea. Griffin's hands were shaking. Preston introduced her as a consultant, said she was working on a project with him, said it was all very professional. But it was not. "No," Griffin closed his eyes. "I saw them through the cockpit mirror, when they thought I was not looking, the way he touched her, the way she looked at him. I knew right away." The tree above them rustled in the wind. A leaf broke free, drifted down, landed on the windshield. "I told myself it was a one-time thing," Griffin continued. "I told myself it was none of my business. I told myself that rich people had different rules, different arrangements, that maybe you knew. Maybe you had accepted it. You knew I would never accept that. I knew." His voice broke. "Deep down, I knew, but I convinced myself otherwise because the truth was too hard to face." 3 more flights after Miami. Los Angeles in December, Chicago in January, New York in February, Different hotels, different cities, same woman. Then Preston called me into his office, sat me down, looked me straight in the eyes. Griffin's hands tightened on the steering wheel even though the truck was not moving. He told me if I said anything, he would destroy me. How? He said he would tell the FAA I had been drinking on the job, that he would file false reports, that he had friends in the aviation industry who would make sure I never flew again. Griffin's voice was hollow, defeated. He said he knew people, important people, people who could make my career disappear overnight. Sloan thought about her brother's life, the two boys who depended on him, 7 and 5, running around like they did not have a care in the world. The mortgage on the house he and Maureen had finally saved enough to buy. The career he had worked for since he was 18 years old. I have 2 kids, Sloan. I have a mortgage. Maureen does not know about any of this. The stress of losing everything would... He trailed off, could not finish. That is not an excuse. No, Bing. His voice cracked. It is not. I know it is not. I am not trying to excuse what I did. I am just trying to help you understand why. Why you let me live a lie for 11 months. Why I was too much of a coward to tell you the truth. Another leaf fell. Another gust of wind. The world kept moving even though everything had stopped. I convinced myself you already knew, Griffin said. I convinced myself you had made your peace with it, that you had some kind of arrangement, that maybe the money was worth it, that maybe the lifestyle was enough. You thought I would sell my dignity for a lifestyle? No, yes, I do not know. Griffin pressed his palms against his eyes. I did not know what to think. Every time I saw you, you seemed so happy. You were talking about the baby, about the nursery, about your plans for the future. And I thought maybe I was wrong. Maybe what I saw was not what I thought. It was exactly what you thought. Yes, it was exactly what I thought. The silence returned, heavier this time, full of broken trust and shattered faith. Sloan looked out the window, at the changing leaves, at the road they had traveled, at the distance between where they were and where they needed to be. I saw the Instagram post, she said quietly. Chelsea's post from the plane after you walked off. Griffin nodded. He had seen it too. Everyone had seen it by now. 7 months of waiting, Sloan quoted. That is what she wrote. 7 months of waiting to be exact. I know. I have been pregnant for 7 months, Griffin. 7 months. The affair started the moment Preston found out I was pregnant. The timeline was devastating in its clarity. Preston had learned he was going to be a father. And instead of celebrating, instead of preparing, instead of falling more in love with his wife and their growing family, he had found someone else, someone younger, someone without stretch marks and morning sickness and swollen ankles, someone who would never demand that he be better than he was. He did not want the baby, Sloan said. The realization settled into her bones like ice water. He never wanted the baby. He saw the pregnancy as his exit strategy. Sloan, I am so sorry. All those months of pretending to be excited, reading the parenting books, coming to the ultrasounds, putting his hand on my belly when the baby kicked. Her voice was rising again, shaking with fury she could barely contain. He was already planning to leave. He was already building his escape route, and I was too blind to see it. You were not blind. You were trusting. There is a difference. Is there? Sloan pressed her hand against her belly, against the daughter who would never know her father the way Sloan had hoped. I ignored every sign, every late night, every distracted look, every time he pulled away from me in bed. I told myself it was work stress. I told myself the pregnancy was making me paranoid. I told myself our marriage was fine because I could not bear to believe otherwise. Griffin reached for her hand. She let him take it, let his warmth anchor her to something solid. You were not blind, he said again, more firmly this time. You were in love. You were hopeful. You were building a family with a man you trusted. There is nothing wrong with that. There is something wrong with me still loving him, even now, even after what he did. The admission tore out of her like a confession. How can I still love someone who threw my clothes on a tarmac? How can I still miss someone who chose another woman over his own child? Because love does not have an off switch. Because you cannot just stop feeling things because someone hurts you. Griffin squeezed her hand. That is not weakness, Sloane. That is being human. The tears came then. Finally, the dam breaking, the flood rushing through. Sloane cried for her marriage, for the future she had lost, for the father her daughter would never have, for the trust her brother had broken, for all the lies she had believed because believing them was easier than facing the truth. Griffin held her, let her cry against his shoulder, let his own tears fall into her hair. I am done being a coward, he said when her sobs had quieted. Whatever you need, Sloane, whatever you decide to do, I am with you. No matter what Preston threatens, no matter what it costs me. He could still ruin your career. Let him try. Griffin's voice hardened. Let him file his false reports and call his important friends. I walked off that plane today. I walked off and I am never going back. Some things are more important than flying. Sloane pulled back, wiped her eyes, looked at her brother's face, at the guilt still written there, at the determination that was slowly replacing it. I believe you, she said. Griffin exhaled, a shaky, broken sound. Relief and regret tangled together. We are going to figure this out, Sloane continued. But right now, I need you to drive. I need you to take me to Mom's house. And I need you to give me some time to think. Griffin nodded. He started the truck, pulled back onto the road. The mile markers resumed their steady count. Sloane rested her head against the window, her hand pressed against her belly, against her daughter, against the only thing in her life that still made sense. I am not crazy, she said quietly, more to herself than to Griffin. All those late nights, the way he looked at his phone, the way he stopped saying I love you before bed. I knew. I knew something was wrong. I just did not want to know. The baby kicked one more time, gentle this time, like an answer, like a promise that someone, at least, was on her side. Your room is always ready. That was what her mother had said when Sloane texted her from the tarmac. I will make the casserole. 3 sentences, simple and certain, the way Rosemary Ashford had always been. Some things did not change. Some things stayed exactly where you left them. And right now, Sloane needed something that had not changed. Something solid. Something real. She needed to go home. The smell hit her the moment she walked through the door. Chicken casserole, cream of mushroom soup, shredded chicken, crispy onion topping. Her mother's recipe, passed down from her grandmother, passed down from her great-grandmother. 4 generations of Ashford women finding comfort in a casserole dish. 4 generations of broken hearts mended by comfort food and unconditional love. Rosemary Ashford's house in Stamford had 3 bedrooms, 1.5 bathrooms, stairs that creaked in exactly the same places they had creaked when Sloane was 7 years old. The wallpaper in the hallway was the same, yellow flowers on a cream background, faded now, peeling slightly at the corners, but still there, still familiar. Family photos lined the walls. Griffin's high school graduation, Sloane's college diploma ceremony, their parents' wedding day, their father in his Navy uniform. Home, real home, the kind that did not cost $12 million and come with a prenuptial agreement. You are home. Rosemary appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on an apron that said, World's Best Grandma. Griffin's boys had given it to her last Christmas. She crossed the room and wrapped her daughter in a hug, careful of the belly, gentle with the broken heart she could see written all over Sloane's face. Sit down, eat something. You look like you have not slept in days. I have not slept in days, Mama. It was true. Even before the tarmac, sleep had been elusive. Pregnancy insomnia, she had told herself. The baby pressing on her bladder. The heartburn that came with lying down. But really, it was the dreams, the nightmares that she refused to acknowledge, the feeling that something was wrong even when she could not name what it was. Her body had known, even when her mind refused to see. Then you will eat, and then you will sleep. Rosemary guided her toward the kitchen. Everything else can wait. Griffin was already there. He must have called ahead while Sloane was crying in his truck. His wife Maureen sat at the kitchen table with their boys, 7 and 5, Tommy and Jack, 2 bundles of energy that never stopped moving. They were quiet now, though. sensing the heaviness in the air, the grown-up sadness that children always felt even when they could not understand. "Aunt Sloan!" Tommy jumped up from his chair, ran to hug her legs. "Are you going to stay with Grandma? Is the baby coming soon? Can I hold her?" "Tommy," Maureen's voice was gentle, warning, "give Aunt Sloan some space. It is okay." Sloan ran her hand over Tommy's hair, soft and brown like Griffin's. "I might stay for a little while, and the baby is not coming for 2 more months. But when she gets here, you can definitely hold her. Promise?" "Promise, Risht." 15 minutes later, the boys were in the backyard, running around like nothing was wrong, chasing each other with sticks, laughing at things only they found funny. Children were resilient like that. They found joy in the smallest things. A ball, a stick, a patch of sunshine on the grass. They did not carry the weight of broken promises and shattered dreams. Not yet. Sloan watched them through the kitchen window, her hand resting on her belly. "You are going to have cousins to play with, little one." She whispered it so no one else could hear. "A whole family who loves you, no matter what happens with your father, no matter how this all turns out. You are going to be surrounded by people who would do anything for you." Dinner was chaos in the best way. Rosemary's casserole steaming in the center of the table, homemade biscuits in a basket covered with a cloth napkin, green beans from the garden cooked with bacon the way Sloane's father had always liked them, Griffin's terrible jokes that made his boys groan and laugh at the same time, Maureen talking about her garden club and the drama surrounding the annual flower show, Tommy interrupting every 5 seconds with questions about dinosaurs, Jack refusing to eat anything green. Normal things, safe things, the rhythms of family life that continued regardless of what was happening outside these walls. No one mentioned Preston, no one mentioned the tarmac, no one mentioned the Instagram post that had been screenshot and shared across a dozen gossip blogs by now. They talked about the boys' soccer game next weekend, about the tomatoes in Rosemary's garden that had finally ripened, about whether it was going to rain tomorrow. But Sloan caught her mother watching her. That nurse's assessment, 32 years of checking vitals and monitoring patients. Rosemary could read a person's health in the shadows under their eyes, in the way they held their shoulders, in the tremor in their hands when they lifted a glass of water. After dinner, Sloan helped clear the table. Muscle memory. The same choreography they had performed 1,000 times in this kitchen. Plates to the sink, leftovers in containers. Dishwasher loaded, glasses on top. The boys were put to bed in the guest room, tucked under quilts that Rosemary's mother had made 50 years ago. Stories read from the same books that Sloan and Griffin had loved as children. Maureen took Griffin home. She had work in the morning. The boys had school. Life went on even when it felt like it should not. Sloan found herself on the back porch, the swing where she had done her homework as a teenager, the same chipped paint on the railing, the same view of the neighbor's fence, now covered in ivy that had not been there when she was young. The September night was cool. Crickets sang in the darkness. Fireflies blinked at the edge of the yard. The same fireflies, or their descendants, that she had caught in jars as a child. The same magic that had made her believe anything was possible. Rosemary appeared beside her. 2 cups in her hands, decaf tea for Sloan, regular for herself. "Your father said something before he died." Rosemary settled into the rocking chair beside the swing, the same rocking chair where she had nursed both her babies, where she had held her husband's hand during his last weeks. "I never told you because I did not know if it was the right time, but I think maybe now is the time." Sloan took the tea, let the warmth seep into her hands, let the steam rise toward her face. "What did he say, Mama?" Rosemary was quiet for a moment, rocking slowly, looking at the stars that were just beginning to appear in the darkening sky. "He said, our girl married money, but she kept her backbone. She will need it someday." Sloan's throat tightened. Her father. Gone 3 years now, lung cancer that took him too fast. She had held his hand at the end, had promised him she would be happy, had promised him she would build a good life. She had tried. God, how she had tried. "He was proud of you, Sloan." Rosemary's voice was soft, steady. "He always knew you were stronger than you thought, stronger than anyone gave you credit for." "I do not feel strong, Mama. The tears were threatening again. I feel like I am falling apart. I feel like everything I believed was a lie. I feel like I wasted 5 years of my life on a man who never really loved me. You did not waste anything. Rosemary stopped rocking, turned to look at her daughter. You gave love. You built a home. You created a life inside you. Those are not small things. Those are not wasted things. But he threw it all away, like it meant nothing. That is his loss, his failure, his broken place that cannot be fixed. Rosemary reached out, took Sloane's hand. Do not let his brokenness break you. The tea was too hot. Sloane blew on it anyway, took a sip that burned her tongue. I found something at the house, she said, before I left to pack for the trip. I found credit card statements in Preston's desk. A card I had never seen before. Charges for hotels and jewelry and things I never received. You knew before today? I suspected. Sloane set down her cup. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself there had to be an explanation. I told myself my husband would never. She could not finish. But he would, and he did. Yes. Rosemary was quiet for a long moment. The swing creaked. The crickets sang. The night deepened around them. What are you going to do now? Sloane thought about the prenuptial agreement she had signed 5 years ago. The document Preston had insisted upon. The pages of legal language that had made her feel small and untrusted. I read the prenup again last night, she said. Really read it. And there is something Preston did not count on. What is that? An infidelity clause. Sloane felt something shift in her chest, the first spark of something other than grief. Section 14, paragraph 3. In the event of infidelity by either party, proven by photographic or testimonial evidence, the entire agreement becomes null and void. Rosemary's eyes widened. That Instagram post. That Instagram post. In Griffin's testimony, 11 months of flights, 11 months of watching Preston with another woman. So the prenup that was supposed to protect him might be the thing that gives me everything. Sloane rested her hand on her belly. Her daughter kicked in response, strong and sure. I need to find a lawyer, a good one, someone who is not afraid of Preston's money or his connections. I know someone. Rosemary stood up, gathered the teacups. Your father's friend from the military, Dominic Harrington. He does divorce law now, has a reputation for being absolutely ruthless in the courtroom. Daddy's friend? They served together in the Navy, 20 years, closer than brothers by the end. Rosemary paused at the door. Dominic was at the funeral, tall man, gray hair, said if you ever needed anything, you should call. I think he meant it. Sloane remembered him vaguely, a handshake at the cemetery, words of condolence that had blurred together with everyone else's, a card with a phone number that she had tucked away and forgotten. I will call him tomorrow. Call him tonight. Rosemary's voice was firm, the steel that had held their family together through every crisis. Men like Preston do not wait. They move fast and they move dirty. You need to move faster. Mama, Rosemary paused, turned back. When did you get so tough? Her mother smiled, just a little, a smile that held decades of struggle and survival. I raised 2 children while working night shifts at the hospital. I buried a husband before he turned 60. I have watched you marry a man I never trusted and bite my tongue for 5 years because you loved him. She opened the door. I have been tough longer than you have been alive, baby girl. And now it is your turn to find the same toughness in yourself because your daughter needs a mother who fights. The door swung shut behind her. Sloane sat alone on the porch. The stars were coming out in earnest now. The same stars she had wished on as a child. The same stars that had watched her grow up and fall in love and have her heart broken. She pulled out her phone, found Dominic Harrington's number in the contacts her mother had given her. Her finger hovered over the call button, hesitating, afraid. Then she thought about the tarmac, about the yellow onesie tumbling across the concrete, about the look in Preston's eyes when he told her to take commercial. She pressed call. He answered on the second ring. Sloane Ashford Whitmore. His voice was deep, calm, the voice of a man who had seen everything and was surprised by nothing. I was wondering when I would hear from you. Mr. Harrington, I need your help. I know you do. A pause. The rustle of papers. Can you come to my office tomorrow morning, 9 sharp, and bring everything you have, every document, every photograph, every text message? I will be there. Good. And Sloan? Yes? Try to get some sleep tonight. We have a long fight ahead of us. You are going to need your strength. He hung up. Sloan stayed on the porch for a long time, watching the stars, feeling her daughter move inside her, letting the night wrap around her like a blanket. Tomorrow the fight would begin. But tonight she would sleep in her childhood bed. She would dream of elephants marching, of mother leading baby, of yellow onesies folded perfectly despite the chaos. And in the morning she would find her backbone, just like her father always knew she would. Dominic Harrington's office occupied the entire top floor of a brick building in downtown Hartford. The elevator was old and slow, the kind with a brass accordion gate that had to be pulled shut by hand. But the office itself was impressive. Wood-paneled walls lined with legal volumes, a desk the size of a small country, windows that looked out over the city skyline, the smell of old books and expensive leather. This was a room where powerful men had their lives dismantled, where fortunes changed hands, where marriages ended and new chapters began. Dominic stood when Sloan entered, tall, gray-haired, the kind of man who had seen everything and was surprised by nothing. His handshake was firm, but gentle. His eyes assessed her in a single glance. Sloan. He guided her to a leather chair across from his desk. Your father talked about you constantly, said you were the smart one, the one who would go places. I went to a mansion in Greenwich. Does that count? It counts as a starting point. Dominic settled into his own chair. Now tell me everything, from the beginning, from the... So she did. She told him about meeting Preston at the museum where she had worked as a curator, about the whirlwind courtship, the proposal after only 6 months, the prenuptial agreement his lawyers had insisted upon. She told him about the marriage, the good years at the beginning, the slow cooling that had started around year 3, the late nights, the distracted looks, the way Preston had started sleeping on the far edge of their bed. She told him about the pregnancy, the joy she had felt, the way Preston had seemed to pull away even as their daughter grew inside her. She told him about the credit card statements, the Instagram posts, the tarmac. Dominic listened without interrupting. He made notes on a yellow legal pad. His pen moved in short, precise strokes. When she finished, he set down his pen, leaned back in his chair. Your brother is willing to testify about what he saw? Yes, he has already agreed. Good. His testimony is crucial. Dominic opened a file folder on his desk. I did some research after you called last night, old habits from my military days. I like to know what I am walking into. What did you find? He spread papers across the desk. Bank statements, wire transfers, corporate documents with names Sloan did not recognize. Your husband has been busy, Dominic said. Very busy. He started moving money approximately 8 months ago. Offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. A shell corporation registered in Singapore. A trust in his mistress's mother's name. 8 months ago. Sloan did the math. That was before the affair started, before she even told Preston she was pregnant. He was planning to leave me before I announced the pregnancy? It appears that way. The pregnancy seems to have accelerated his timeline, but the groundwork was already laid. Dominic pushed a document toward her. This shell company was registered 8 months ago, the day after your 3rd wedding anniversary. Sloan stared at the paper. A company called Coastal Holdings LLC, an address in Delaware, Preston's signature at the bottom. I do not understand. We were happy 3 years ago, or at least I thought we were. Happy people do not hide assets, Dominic said simply. They do not create offshore corporations and secret trusts. Whatever was happening in your marriage, Preston was already planning his exit strategy. The baby kicked, hard, like she could feel her mother's distress. Sloan pressed her hand against her belly, tried to keep her voice steady. What does this mean for the divorce? It means we have leverage. Dominic smiled, a thin, predatory expression that probably terrified opposing counsel. The infidelity clause in your prenup voids the entire agreement. You are entitled to equitable distribution of all marital assets, including the ones he tried to hide. Can we prove he hid them? With forensic accountants, yes. Every wire transfer leaves a trail. Every shell company has documentation. It takes time, but we can trace every penny. Dominic pulled out another document. Your husband made a critical error, Sloan. He insisted on that infidelity clause to protect himself. He never imagined he would be the one who broke it. For the first time in days, Sloan felt something other than grief, something sharper, more focused, hope. And beneath the hope, something that might have been satisfaction. What do we do now? We file, but strategically. Dominic picked up his pen again. Preston does not know you have this documentation. He thinks you are going to cry and accept whatever he offers. What is he offering? Dominic pulled out a letter on expensive cream stationery. Victoria Mills, attorney at law. His lawyer sent this over this morning. $5 million, the car. Continued health insurance until your daughter turns 18. Dominic's voice was flat, unimpressed. Generous by his standards, insulting by any other. $5 million. It sounded like a lot. To most people, it would be a fortune. But Sloan had seen the bank statements, the investment portfolios, the real estate holdings that Preston had accumulated over the years. $5 million was nothing. A rounding error in his ledger. What do you think I should get? Based on the length of your marriage, his net worth, and the hidden assets? Dominic met her eyes. 40% minimum, plus full custody with supervised visitation, plus a trust for your daughter that he cannot touch until she turns 18. How much is 40%? We are talking about hundreds of millions of dollars, Sloan. Not five. Hundreds of millions. The number did not feel real. Nothing about any of this felt real. He will fight, she said. Of course he will, but he will lose. Dominic stood, walked to the window, looked out at the city below. Do you know why I became a divorce attorney? Why? Because I spent 20 years in the Navy watching powerful men abuse their positions. Officers who thought the rules did not apply to them. Commanders who destroyed careers and families because they could. He turned to face her. After I retired, I decided to keep fighting the same battle in a different arena, holding powerful men accountable when no one else would. And Preston is one of those men. Preston is exactly that kind of man. Dominic returned to his desk. Your father would have hated him. Did you know that? What? Your father called me after you got engaged, asked me to look into Preston Whitmore, said something about the man did not sit right with him. Dominic paused. I told him what I found, the lawsuits that had been quietly settled, the employees who had been paid to sign non-disclosure agreements, the pattern of behavior that suggested a man who believed rules were for other people. Why did no one tell me? Because you were in love. Dominic's voice softened. Your father asked me what he should do. I told him the truth. I told him that people rarely listen to warnings about the ones they love, that sometimes people have to learn hard lessons for themselves. Sloan thought about her father, about the way he had walked her down the aisle with a smile that did not quite reach his eyes, about the way he had held her hand at the reception and said, I just want you to be happy, sweetheart. Promise me you will be happy. She had promised, and she had tried. God, how she had tried. He never said anything. He loved you too much to risk pushing you away. Dominic sat back down. But he made me promise something before he died. He made me promise that if you ever needed help, I would be there, that I would fight for you the way he would have fought for you. Sloane's eyes filled with tears. Her father, protecting her even from beyond the grave. Looking out for her even when he could not be there. I am going to keep that promise, Dominic continued. I am going to take your case. I am going to fight Preston Whitmore with everything I have. And I am going to make sure you and your daughter get everything you deserve. What do I need to do? For now, nothing. Dominic handed her a tissue from a box on his desk. Go home. Rest. Prepare for your daughter's arrival. Let me do what I do best. Sloan wiped her eyes, gathered her purse. One more thing, Dominic said as she stood. There is someone else you should know about. Someone who reached out to me yesterday. Who? Theodore Whitmore, Preston's father. Sloan froze halfway out of her chair. Theodore? I have barely spoken to him in years. Preston said they were estranged. They have been for quite some time. Dominic's expression was unreadable. But Theodore has been following this situation, and he wants to help. Help me? Why would he want to help me? That is a question you will have to ask him yourself. Dominic handed her a business card, just a phone number, no name, no title. He asked me to pass along his contact information, said he has documents you need to see. Sloane took the card, turned it over in her hands. I do not understand. Neither do I, but in my experience, when a man like Theodore Whitmore reaches out in a situation like this, it is worth listening to what he has to say. Dominic walked her to the door. Think about it, and call me if you need anything, day or night. Sloane walked out of the office in a daze, down the slow elevator with its brass accordion gate, through the lobby with its marble floors, into the parking garage where Griffin was waiting with his truck. How did it go? Good, I think. Sloane climbed into the passenger seat. Dominic says we have a strong case. The prenup is void because of the infidelity clause. That is great news. But there is something else. Sloane pulled out the business card, the phone number in blue ink. Preston's father wants to talk to me. Dominic says he has information I need to see. Griffin's eyebrows rose. Theodore? I thought he and Preston had not spoken in years. They have not. Sloane tucked the card into her purse. But apparently Theodore has been paying attention, and he wants to help. Do you trust him? Sloane thought about Theodore Whitmore, the few times she had met him at family functions, the quiet dignity in his voice, the disappointment in his eyes when he looked at his son. I do not know, she admitted, but I think I need to find out. She pulled out her phone, dialed the number. Theodore answered on the first ring. Sloane? His voice was quiet, dignified, nothing like his son's bluster. Thank you for calling. We need to talk. The stress caught up with her at 3 in the morning. Sloane woke to pain, sharp and sudden, radiating from her lower back through her belly like a vice being tightened. Her sheets were damp with sweat. Her heart was racing so fast she could feel it pounding in her ears. Mama. The word came out as a gasp, strangled by the pain. Mama. Rosemary was there in seconds. 32 years of nursing had trained her body to wake at the smallest sound. She did not need to turn on the light to know something was wrong. The fear in her daughter's voice was enough. Deep breaths, baby girl. Her hands were cool and steady on Sloane's forehead. Tell me where it hurts. My back and my stomach. Sloane pressed her hand against her belly. Keeps tightening, like a cramp, but worse. Rosemary checked her watch. An old habit, counting the seconds between contractions even before she knew for sure that was what they were. How long have you been feeling this? I do not know. I just woke up. Another contraction. Sloane gasped, grabbed her mother's hand, squeezed until her knuckles went white. Rosemary counted silently. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. When the pain released, her jaw was tight. Every 3 to 4 minutes, that is too close. We are going to the hospital. No, it is too early. The baby is not due for another 8 weeks. I know when the baby is due, and I know what premature contractions look like. Rosemary was already pulling back the blankets, already reaching for the overnight bag that had been packed and waiting by the door. We are going to the hospital. Now. The drive was a blur of street lights and stop signs and Griffin's voice on the phone. Rosemary had called him from the car. He was meeting them at the emergency entrance. Sloane counted her breaths, counted the contractions, counted the prayers that her daughter would be okay. Please, please let her be okay. She is not ready. I am not ready. We need more time. The emergency room was bright and loud and full of people whose pain was visible in ways hers was not. A man with a bloody bandage on his head, a woman coughing into her elbow, a child crying in the corner while his mother tried to comfort him. But when the nurses saw Sloane's belly, saw the way she was doubled over with each contraction, they moved fast. A wheelchair, an elevator, a room with monitors and machines, and a bed that could be adjusted 100 different ways. Bar Webb arrived within 20 minutes, still in her pajamas under her white coat, her calm face and steady hands the only anchor in a storm of fear and pain. Let us see what is happening, she said. Her voice was warm, soothing. The voice of a woman who had guided hundreds of babies into the world and was not about to lose this one. Monitors wrapped around Sloane's belly, tracking heartbeats. Two of them now, mother and daughter, drumming together. The baby is fine. Dr. Webb studied the screen. Strong heartbeat, good position, no signs of distress. Then what is happening? Sloane could barely get the words out through another contraction. Why am I in labor? You are not in labor. Not yet. Webb sat on the edge of the bed, took Sloane's hand. What you are experiencing is called preterm contractions. Your body is responding to stress, extreme emotional stress. Stress. The word seemed too small for what Sloane had been through, too ordinary for the devastation of the past week. You are only 32 weeks, Dr. Webb continued. The baby's lungs are not fully developed yet. We need to keep her inside for at least 4 more weeks, ideally 6. How do I do that? Bed rest, complete bed rest. No work, no stress, no major decisions or confrontations. Dr. Webb's eyes were kind but firm. I know that is a lot to ask given what you are going through, but your daughter is counting on you to take care of yourself. Sloane closed her eyes. The monitors beeped steadily, her daughter's heart strong and sure despite everything. I can do that, she whispered. For her, I can do anything. They kept her overnight for observation, gave her medication to stop the contractions, monitored the baby's heartbeat every hour. Griffin sat in the chair by her swan. He had not left since he arrived, had not slept, had not eaten the sandwich Rosemary had brought him. This is my fault, he said when Rosemary had gone to get coffee. If I had told you sooner, if I had been brave enough to speak up months ago, you would not be here. You would not be going through this. This is not your fault. Sloane's voice was weak, tired. This is Preston's fault. This is the fault of a man who threw his pregnant wife's clothes on a tarmac and flew away with his mistress. I still should have. Yes, you should have. But you did not, and I cannot change that. Neither can you. She reached for his hand, squeezed it weakly. What I need now is for you to stop blaming yourself and start helping me fight. Griffin wiped his eyes, nodded. Whatever you need, whatever I have to do. Good, because when I get out of here, we are going to take everything Preston has. We are going to make him pay for what he did. And we are going to build a life for my daughter that does not include him. The conviction in her voice surprised her. The anger that had been simmering beneath the grief was starting to break through, starting to take shape into something useful. They sent her home the next morning with instructions and medication and warnings. Complete bed rest, no exceptions. Rosemary set up a command center in the guest bedroom. Pillows arranged just right, books and magazines within reach, a bell on the nightstand in case she needed anything. You are not to get out of this bed except to use the bathroom, Rosemary declared. I will bring you food. I will bring you tea. I will bring you whatever you need. But you are not to move. Yes, Mama. For 3 days, Sloane did nothing but lie in bed and listen to her body, feel her daughter move, count the kicks like prayers. Griffin brought his boys to visit. They sat on the floor of her room and colored pictures for the baby. Tommy drew a house with a big sun and stick figures holding hands. Jack drew what he claimed was a dragon but looked more like a purple blob with legs. This is for the baby, Tommy said, presenting his picture with pride. So she knows she has a family. Sloane's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, sweetheart. She is going to love it. Maureen came with casseroles and quiet support. She did not ask questions about Preston. She just sat and knitted baby blankets in soft yellows and greens. The clicking of her needles was soothing, a rhythm to hold on to when everything else felt uncertain. I never liked him, Maureen said one afternoon. Her voice was casual, like she was commenting on the weather. Preston, I mean, something about his eyes too cold. Why did you never say anything? Because you loved him, because you were happy, because sometimes people have to figure things out for themselves. Maureen looked up from her knitting. But for what it is worth, I think you are going to be okay. Better than okay. I think you are going to be amazing. And in the quiet moments when everyone was asleep and the house was dark and the only sound was the ticking of the clock on the wall, Sloane let herself feel. The grief came first. Waves of it. For the marriage she thought she had. For the future she thought she was building. For the father her daughter would never really know. Then came the anger. slower, deeper, like lava beneath the earth, building pressure until it had to find release. She had given Preston everything, her trust, her love, her body, her future, and he had thrown it all away on a tarmac in front of her brother while she was carrying his child. The hardest part is not his betrayal, she whispered into the darkness. Only her daughter could hear. Only her daughter would understand. The hardest part is admitting I saw the signs and painted over them. Every red flag I turned into a rose. I was my own accomplice. The baby kicked. Once. Twice. But not anymore. Sloane pressed her hand against the movement, against the life that was still growing, despite everything. I am done making excuses. I am done pretending. When we get through this, when you are here safe in my arms, I am going to show you what it looks like to fight for yourself. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, a text from a number she did not recognize. I heard you were in the hospital. I hope you and the baby are well. Please take care of yourself. The information I have can wait until you are stronger. Theodore Alwapa. She stared at the message for a long time. Then she typed back, "Thank you, I will call you when I am ready." His reply came instantly. "I will be waiting. Take all the time you need." Sloane set down the phone, closed her eyes, let sleep pull her under. Tomorrow she would rest, and the day after that, and the day after that. But eventually she would be strong enough to fight. And when that day came, Preston Whitmore would finally understand what he had thrown away. 2 weeks of bed rest. 14 days of lying still while her body healed and her daughter grew. 14 days of thinking. Sloane had never had this much time to think before. Her life with Preston had been a constant whirlwind of events and obligations and social appearances. Charity galas, business dinners, weekend trips to houses that cost more than most people earned in a lifetime. She had mistaken busyness for happiness, had thought the motion meant they were going somewhere, had not realized until now that they had been running in place the whole time. But lying in her mother's guest room with nothing to do but listen to her own heartbeat and feel her daughter move, the truth became impossible to ignore. She had known. Not everything, not the details, but somewhere deep in her body, in that place where instinct lives and logic cannot reach, she had known that something was wrong. The late nights that Preston blamed on work, the phone calls he always took in another room, the way he had stopped reaching for her in bed, the way his eyes slid past her instead of focusing on her face. She had noticed all of it, and she had explained all of it away. Work stress, the economy, the pressures of managing a fortune, anything except the obvious truth. He was having an affair, and she had not wanted to see it. "I did this to myself," she said to her mother one afternoon. Rosemary was changing the sheets, making her stand by the window for exactly 5 minutes while she worked, the only movement Dr. Webb allowed. "You did not do anything to yourself. He did this to you." "I ignored the signs, Mama. I saw them and I chose not to see them because seeing them would have meant admitting that my marriage was failing, that I had made a mistake, that I was not as happy as I wanted to be." Rosemary smoothed the fresh sheets, fluffed the pillows, her movements precise and efficient. "Do you know how many patients I saw over the years who knew something was wrong, but did not want to know?" She helped Sloane back into bed, tucked the blankets around her legs. Women who ignored the lump in their breast, men who dismissed the chest pains, people who knew in their gut that something was wrong, but could not face the reality. What happened to them? Some of them were fine. They faced the truth eventually and dealt with it. Others, Rosemary's voice trailed off, others waited too long. Sloane rested her hand on her belly. Her daughter kicked in response. "I almost waited too long." "But you did not. You are here. You are fighting. You are going to be okay." Rosemary sat on the edge of the bed. "That is what matters now. Not what you did or did not see. Not the signs you missed. What matters is what you do next." What she did next was call Dominic. "I want to see everything," she told him. "Every document you have on Preston's finances. Every hidden account. Every shell company. I want to understand exactly what he did and why." Dominic hesitated. "That is a lot of information to process while you are supposed to be resting." "I have had 2 weeks of resting. 2 weeks of lying in bed with nothing to do but think. And I have realized something." What is that? I spent 5 years letting other people make decisions for me, letting Preston choose the house, letting his lawyers draft the prenup, letting him control the finances because I did not want to deal with the stress. Sloane's voice was steady, certain. That ends now. I want to be involved in every part of this case. I want to understand every strategy. I want to know exactly what we are fighting for. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Good, Dominic finally said. I was hoping you would say that. I will send everything over this afternoon. The documents arrived in a large brown envelope. Griffin brought them upstairs, his expression worried. Are you sure this is a good idea? The doctor said no stress. Knowledge is not stress. Ignorance is stress. Sloane took the envelope. Sitting here wondering what is happening, what Preston is planning, what the future holds. That is stress. But understanding the situation, that is power. She spent the next 3 days reviewing the documents, learning to read the financial statements, understanding the complex web of corporations and trusts that Preston had constructed. The picture that emerged was devastating. Preston had begun hiding assets almost from the day they were married. Small amounts at first, a few $100,000 here, $1 million there, transferred to accounts she had never seen, invested in companies she had never heard of. The pace had accelerated over the years. By their 3rd anniversary, he was moving tens of millions. By their 4th, hundreds of millions. And 8 months ago, right around the time Sloane announced her pregnancy, he had begun the final phase, transferring assets into trusts and corporations that were designed to be untouchable in a divorce. He was never going to stay, she said to Griffin one evening. He was sitting in the chair by her bed, reviewing the same documents. From the very beginning, he was planning to leave. The marriage was just, what, a holding pattern? A way to pass the time until he found something better? Some people do not know how to love, Griffin said quietly. They know how to acquire, how to possess, how to control. But love, actually caring about another person more than yourself, some people never learn. Did I ever really know him? You knew who he wanted you to see. That is not your fault. That is his. Sloane looked at the documents spread across her blankets. Years of deception laid out in black and white. Dominic says we can trace all of this. He says the forensic accountants can find every hidden penny. And what happens when they do? Then we take it. Sloane gathered the papers into a neat pile. Every dollar he tried to hide. Every account he thought I would never find. We take it all. That is going to make him angry. Good, Sloane smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a woman who had finally stopped being afraid. Let him be angry. Let him rage and threaten and throw his tantrums. At the end of the day, the law is on my side, and the law does not care about his anger. Her phone rang. Dominic's number on the screen. We have a problem, he said without preamble. Preston's attorney is pushing for mediation. She wants to meet next week. I thought we were not negotiating. We are not, but refusing mediation entirely can hurt us in court. It makes us look unreasonable. Dominic paused. The good news is that mediation gives us an opportunity, a chance to show Preston exactly how much we know. You want to ambush him. I want to show him that he has already lost. Sometimes that is enough to make people negotiate reasonably. Sloane thought about it, about sitting across a table from Preston for the first time since the tarmac, about looking into the eyes of the man who had thrown her clothes on the ground and flown away with his mistress. The thought made her stomach turn. But it also made something else stir in her chest. Anticipation. When is the mediation? Tuesday, if you are feeling strong enough. I will be there. After she hung up, Sloane sat quietly for a long time, watching the evening light fade through the window, feeling her daughter move inside her. Your mama is going to do something hard next week, she whispered. But I am going to do it for you, so you will know that no matter how scary something is, you face it anyway. You stand up, you fight, you do not let anyone throw you away. The baby kicked, strong and sure, like a promise. The doorbell rang on Monday afternoon, the day before the mediation. Sloane was finally off bed rest. 36 weeks pregnant now, the baby was safe. Her body had stabilized. Dr. Webb had cleared her for normal activities, though she had stressed the word normal several times. Normal does not mean stressful, she had said. Normal does not mean confrontational. Normal means taking walks and eating well and preparing for your daughter's arrival. Sloane had nodded and agreed and had not mentioned that she was walking into a confrontation with her soon-to-be ex-husband the very next day. Griffin had returned to work, a position with a small charter company. Less money than flying for Preston, but infinitely more dignity. Rosemary was at the grocery store. The house was quiet. Sloane opened the door expecting a delivery, another casserole from the church ladies, maybe a package from Dominic with last-minute documents. Instead, Theodore Whitmore stood on the porch. He was older than she remembered, 73 years of living etched into every line of his face, deep grooves around his eyes, a slight tremor in his hands, the faded strength of a man who had once been powerful but was now watching that power slip away. But his eyes were sharp, alert, the same blue as Preston's, but without the coldness, without the calculation. Sloane, he held his hat in his hands, a fedora, the kind of hat men used to wear to church. I apologize for coming without calling first. I know you have had a difficult few weeks. Mr. Whitmore. Theodore, please. He glanced at the house, at the modest lawn and the chipped paint on the porch railing. May I come in? I have something to show you. Something that could not wait until after the mediation. Sloane studied him. This man she barely knew, the father of the man who had destroyed her world. But there was something in his eyes, something that looked almost like shame, almost like regret. Come in, she said. She led him to the living room, the floral couch, the family photos on the mantel, the needlepoint sampler that said, "Home Sweet Home." Theodore did not seem to notice the modesty of the surroundings, or if he did not care. He sat in the armchair by the window and looked at the photographs on the wall. Your father served, he said. It was not a question. 22 years in the Navy. A good man then. Theodore set his hat on his knee. I started my company with nothing. A single rental property in Queens, 53 years ago. I know. Preston told me the story. Did he tell you what happened after? Theodore's voice was matter-of-fact. Not bitter, just tired. How he took everything I built and turned it into something unrecognizable. 53 years of work. He stripped away everything I valued and rebuilt it in his own image. He said you were old-fashioned, out of touch. I'm old-fashioned. A ghost of a smile crossed Theodore's face. I believe in things like honesty, loyalty, keeping your word. Very outdated concepts, apparently. Sloane settled onto the couch across from him. Her belly was enormous now. Moving from one position to another had become an engineering project. Why are you here, Theodore? Why now? Because I saw what he did to you, on the tarmac. Theodore reached into his jacket pocket. Your brother's co-pilot recorded a video. Just a few seconds. He sent it to me because he knew Preston and I were estranged. Why would he send it to you? Because he wanted me to see what my son had become, what I had created. Theodore's hands trembled slightly as he pulled out a folder. I have not spoken to Preston in 2 years. The last time we met, he told me to stay out of his business, that he did not need my advice or my approval. So why help me? Theodore was quiet for a long moment. The clock on the wall ticked. Outside, a car passed. Normal sounds for an extraordinary conversation. Because I am dying. He said it simply, without drama, like he was commenting on the weather. Cancer, stage 4. My doctors give me 6 months, maybe less. I am sorry. Do not be. I have had a good life. No complaints. He set the folder on the coffee table between them. But I would like to meet my granddaughter before I go, and I would like to know that she will be raised by a mother with resources, not a woman trapped by my son's money and manipulation. Sloane looked at the folder. She did not reach for it. What is in there? Everything. Theodore pushed it toward her. The accounts in the Cayman Islands, the Singapore Trust, the shell company registered to his mistress's mother. Every asset he tried to hide. How did you get this? I am old, Sloane, so but I am not powerless, not yet. Theodore's smile was thin, predatory. Nothing like Preston's, but somehow similar in its sharpness. My son forgot that I built the network he is trying to use. I have friends he does not know about, contacts who owe me favors, people who remember when the Whitmore name meant something besides wealth and scandal. Sloan opened the folder. Bank statements, account numbers, transaction records. More documentation than Dominic had found in weeks of investigation. This is everything, she breathed. Everything he tried to hide from you. Everything he thought would never be found. Theodore leaned back in his chair. Give it to your lawyer. Use it to get what you deserve. Wait, away. Sloan looked up at him. You are his father. This will destroy him. He destroyed himself the moment he threw your bags on that tarmac. Theodore's voice was flat, final. I watched that video, Sloan. I watched you bend down and pick up that little yellow baby outfit, your hands shaking, your world falling apart, and you folded it perfectly, like nothing was wrong. I do not know why I did that, because that is who you are. That is the kind of woman you are. Theodore's eyes met hers. My son married someone with more dignity in one moment than he has shown in his entire life, and he threw her away for a woman who takes selfies on airplanes. Sloan closed the folder, pressed her hand against her belly. What do you want in return? Nothing you cannot give. I want to meet Eleanor when she is born. I want to be part of her life, whatever time I have left. Theodore stood slowly, his movements careful, measured. And I want you to promise me something. What? Promise me you will raise her to be like you, not like him. Theodore picked up his hat. Promise me she will learn that strength does not come from money or power. It comes from dignity, from integrity, from folding baby clothes when the world is ending. Sloan stood, walked him to the door, her steps heavy with the weight of the baby and the weight of everything she was feeling. Eleanor, she said, that was your mother's name. She was a remarkable woman, strong, kind, impossible to break. Theodore paused on the porch, looked back at her. I see her in you, Sloan. I saw it from the first time we met. I just never said anything because I did not want to interfere. Why not? Because my son was happy. For the first time in his life, he seemed genuinely happy. Theodore's voice was soft, sad. I thought maybe you would change him. Maybe love would make him better. I was wrong. He walked to his car, an old Mercedes, navy blue, well-maintained but not flashy, the car of a man who valued substance over show. One more thing, he called from the driveway. At the mediation tomorrow, do not let him see you cry. Do not let him see you break. He feeds on weakness. It is the only power he has left. What if I cannot help it? You can. Theodore opened his car door. You already survived the worst he could do to you. Everything else is just paperwork. He drove away. The Mercedes disappeared around the corner. Sloan stood in the doorway for a long time, the folder heavy in her hands, the conversation echoing in her mind. Eleanor, her daughter's name, a gift from a dying man who wanted redemption for the son he had failed. Eleanor Grace Ashford, Sloan said softly. Not Whitmore. Never Whitmore. What do you think of that, baby girl? The baby kicked, strong and sure, like an answer, like a beginning. The mediation room was exactly what Sloan had expected. Beige walls, beige carpet, a conference table long enough to keep enemies at safe distances. The kind of room designed to be forgettable. She arrived early. Dominic's advice. Get there first. Establish presence. Let him come to you. Sloan sat on her side of the table and waited. Her hands were folded in her lap. Her back was straight. Her face was calm. Inside, her heart was racing. Her palms were sweating. Every cell in her body wanted to run, but Theodore's words echoed in her mind. Do not let him see you break. He feeds on weakness. So she did not break. She did not fidget. She did not check her phone or look at the door or do any of the things that would have shown how nervous she was. She just sat and waited and breathed. Preston arrived at exactly 9 o'clock, not a minute early, not a minute late. Punctuality is power play. The unspoken message that his time was too valuable to waste. He looked good, tanned from the Maldives, rested, relaxed, like the past month had been a vacation rather than the implosion of his marriage. He did not look at her when he entered, did not acknowledge her existence, just sat down across the table like she was furniture. Victoria Mills sat beside him. Expensive suit, perfect hair, the kind of woman who made her living tearing other women apart. "Thank you for agreeing to mediation," Victoria said. Her voice was smooth, professional. "My client is hoping we can resolve this matter quickly and amicably. Your client threw my client's belongings on a tarmac and flew to the Maldives with his mistress." Dominic's voice was equally smooth, equally professional. "I am not sure amicable is on the table. What happened at the airport was regrettable." Victoria did not blink, did not flinch. But emotions were running high. Things were said and done that everyone regrets. "I do not regret anything." Preston spoke for the first time. His voice was cold, dismissive. "I made a business decision. The marriage was not working. I ended it. By humiliating your pregnant wife in front of her brother? By being efficient." Preston's eyes finally moved to Sloan, but they looked through her, not at her. Sloan knew the marriage was over. She had known for months. She was just refusing to accept reality. Sloan said nothing, did not react, did not give him the satisfaction of seeing her flinch. "Let us focus on the matter at hand." Victoria opened her briefcase, pulled out a stack of papers. "My client is prepared to offer a generous settlement, $5 million. The Mercedes, continued health insurance for the child until she reaches 18. Dominic did not touch the papers. "Your client's prenuptial agreement includes an infidelity clause. Section 14, paragraph 3. Victoria's expression did not change, but something shifted behind her eyes. "That clause requires proof of infidelity, which we have." Dominic produced a tablet, turned it so everyone could see. Chelsea's Instagram post, the champagne glasses, the caption, "7 months of waiting." Social media posts are not admissible. "We also have testimony from the pilot." Dominic pulled out another document. "Griffin Ashford, Mrs. Whitmore's brother. He is prepared to testify about 11 separate flights where Miss Vandermeer accompanied Mr. Whitmore." Victoria's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "And then there are these." Dominic spread more papers across the table. Bank statements, wire transfers, account records from the Cayman Islands, Singapore, Delaware. The documents Theodore had provided, every hidden dollar exposed. "Your client has been systematically hiding assets for the past 5 years." Dominic's voice was calm, almost pleasant. "Offshore accounts, shell corporations, trusts designed to be invisible in divorce proceedings." Preston's mask cracked, just slightly, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. He had not expected this. He had thought his secrets were safe. "These documents are," Victoria started, "authentic. Everyone verified by forensic accountants." Dominic smiled. "Your client made a mistake, Victoria. He forgot that hiding money leaves a paper trail. It just takes time and expertise to follow." Silence fell over the room, the kind of silence that follows explosions. Preston's hands had curled into fists on the table. His tan seemed paler now, his composure slipping. "This is absurd." His voice was tight, controlled, but barely. "This is a setup, a conspiracy. I will have you disbarred." "Sit down, Preston." Victoria's voice was sharp, warning. "Be quiet and let me handle this." For a moment, Sloan thought he might refuse, might stand up and start shouting, might do something that would make everything worse. But he did not. He sat, his jaw clenched, his eyes burning with fury he could not release. "We need to discuss this privately," Victoria said to Dominic. "My client was not aware of the full scope of your documentation." "I am sure he was not." Dominic began gathering his papers. "We are prepared to proceed to trial if necessary, but we are also open to reasonable negotiation." "What are you asking for?" 40% of all assets, including the hidden ones, full custody with supervised visitation, a trust for the child that Mr. Whitmore cannot access until she turns 18. Dominic paused. "And a public apology." "A public," Preston started. "Preston." Victoria's voice cut like glass. "Not another word." The room fell silent again. Sloan had not spoken, had not moved, had sat through the entire exchange like a statue. But now she stood, her belly leading, her backbone straight. Wait! Her voice was steady, calm, the voice of a woman who had spent a month preparing for this moment. Everyone looked at her. She met Preston's eyes, held them, made him see her for the first time since he had thrown her luggage on that tarmac. I have something to say. Sloane, Dominic's voice was cautious, warning. It is okay. She did not look away from Preston. I need to say this. The room waited. 5 years ago, you asked me to marry you in a garden full of white roses. Sloane's voice did not waver. You told me I was the only woman who had ever understood you. You told me you wanted to build a life together. You cried when we found out I was pregnant. You held my hand at the ultrasound and said our daughter was the best thing that had ever happened to you. Preston's expression was unreadable, but something flickered behind his eyes. Was any of it real? Sloane asked. Any of it? Or was I always just something to acquire? Something to possess until something better came along? Silence. I stood on that tarmac and picked up our daughter's onesie while you flew away with another woman. Sloane's voice rose slightly. Not angry, just true. I folded it perfectly because my hands knew what to do when my heart was breaking, and I thought for one terrible moment that I must have done something wrong, that I must have failed somehow, that no one could be this cruel without a reason. She paused, let the words sink in. But I did not do anything wrong. I loved you, I trusted you, I built a home with you, and you threw it all away because you could, because you thought money meant you could do whatever you wanted without consequences. Preston opened his mouth, closed it. For once, he had nothing to say. This is not about money anymore. Sloane gathered her purse. This is about our daughter knowing that her mother stood up, that her mother fought back, that her mother did not let herself be thrown away like garbage. She walked to the door, turned back one last time. No settlement, Preston. We go to court, and when we are done, the whole world is going to know exactly who you are. She walked out. Dominic followed. The door closed behind them. In the hallway, Sloane's legs finally gave out. She slumped against the wall, shaking, crying, releasing everything she had been holding back. Dominic stood beside her, did not touch her, did not speak, just waited until she was ready. I did it, she finally said. I faced him. You did more than face him. Dominic's voice was warm, proud. You destroyed him. In that room, in front of his own lawyer, you made him see exactly what he lost. Did you see his face? I saw it, Dominic smiled. He looked like a man who just realized he made the worst mistake of his life. Sloane wiped her eyes, straightened her shoulders, touched her belly where her daughter was moving. Good, she said. Let him think about that for a while. The story broke 3 weeks later. Someone leaked the mediation documents. Not Dominic, not Sloane, not anyone they could identify. Perhaps someone in Victoria's office, sensing which way the wind was blowing. Perhaps someone in Preston's own company, tired of covering for a boss who did not deserve loyalty. It did not matter who. What mattered was that everyone knew. Financial blogs picked it up first. Whitmore Air faces infidelity clause in messy divorce. Then the gossip sites. Billionaire dumped pregnant wife on tarmac for Instagram mistress. Then mainstream media. Headlines everywhere. Photos of Preston looking angry and cornered. Photos of Chelsea looking less beautiful without her filters. Photos of Sloane that she did not remember anyone taking. Looking calm and dignified despite everything. The public chose a side. Overwhelmingly, devastatingly, they chose hers. Comments flooded Chelsea's social media accounts. The same followers who had praised her lifestyle turned on her with vicious efficiency. Home wrecker. Trash. Gold digger. Sponsors disappeared overnight. Brand deals evaporated. The carefully constructed image of a successful influencer crumbled to dust. Sloane watched it happen from her mother's couch. Griffin beside her. Rosemary knitting in the armchair. Like it was just another evening. Just another TV show. Except the TV show was her life. You should feel happy about this, Griffin said, watching Chelsea's latest post get torn apart in the comments. This is justice. Is it? Sloane was not sure. She thought she would feel satisfaction watching Chelsea's world collapse. She had imagined this moment during those long nights in the hospital, the moment when everyone would see the truth, but watching it actually happen felt hollow, empty, because Chelsea had been used too, lied to, manipulated, just like Sloane. She knew, Griffin said, reading her expression. She knew he was married. She knew you were pregnant. She knew what Preston told her, which was probably a version of the truth designed to make her feel special. When Sloane turned off the TV, he told her we were separated, that I knew about the affair, that I had accepted it. And she believed him? She wanted to believe him, just like I wanted to believe our marriage was happy. Sloane rested her hand on her belly. We were both fooled by the same man. Hating her does not change that. The doorbell rang on Thursday afternoon. Sloane answered it, expecting another reporter. They had been coming by regularly, hoping for a comment, a quote, anything they could turn into a headline. Instead, Chelsea Vandermeer stood on the porch. She looked nothing like the woman from the tarmac. Her makeup was smeared. Her designer clothes were wrinkled. Her hair, always perfect in photos, hung limp around her face like something dying. You ruined my life. Her voice was raw, broken. Sloane should have slammed the door, should have called the police, should have done any of the things a normal person would do when confronted by the woman who had helped destroy their marriage. Instead, she just looked at her, really looked at her, past the Instagram filters and the influencer persona and the careful construction of a perfect life. She saw a woman who was drowning, a woman who had built everything on a lie and was now watching it all wash away. I was on a plane to the Maldives while you picked up your maternity clothes from a tarmac, Sloane said quietly. We both know who ruined whose life. Chelsea's face crumpled, the last of the mask falling away. He told me you were separated. Tears streamed down her cheeks. He told me you had an arrangement, that you stayed together or appearance, that the baby, she could not finish, that the baby was not his? A nod, barely perceptible. And you believed him. I wanted to believe him. Chelsea's voice was barely a whisper. I wanted to be special. I wanted to be the one he chose, not the other woman, the real one. Rain was starting to fall, light at first, then heavier. Chelsea stood on the porch getting soaked, not moving, not asking to come in, just standing there like she did not know where else to go. Sloane had a choice. She thought about the tarmac, the yellow onesie, the months of pain and fear and fury. Then she thought about her daughter, about the kind of woman she wanted to be, the kind of mother she wanted her daughter to see. Come inside, she said. You are getting soaked. Chelsea stared at her, disbelief written across her face. What? Come inside. I will make tea. Sloane stepped back from the doorway. We were both used by the same man. Hating each other is not going to change that. They sat in Rosemary's kitchen. Two women who should have been enemies, drinking tea from mismatched mugs. Chelsea talked. The real story this time, not the filtered version, not the Instagram captions, the truth. How Preston had pursued her at a charity event, made her feel like the most special woman in the world, bought her gifts, took her on trips, promised her a future that she was stupid enough to believe in. He said he was going to leave you after the baby was born, Chelsea said. Her hands wrapped around her mug like she was trying to absorb its warmth. He said he wanted to wait until things were settled, until he could do it without looking like a monster. But he could not wait. No, he could not, Chelsea laughed bitterly. I think he got bored of me, of the waiting, of the whole charade, so he decided to blow everything up instead. The tarmac. I did not know he was going to do that. Chelsea's eyes filled with fresh tears. I thought we were just going on a trip. I did not know you were going to my there. I did not know he was going to... She could not finish. Sloane studied her. This woman who had been her enemy. This woman who had helped destroy her marriage. But also this woman who had been lied to, used, discarded the moment she became inconvenient. He has already found someone new, Chelsea said. I saw him at a restaurant last week with a 25-year-old, fresh out of college, looking at her the way he used to look at me. How did that make you feel? Like I was nothing, like I never mattered, like the whole thing was just a game to him. Chelsea set down her mug. Is that how you felt when you found out about me? Yes. Sloane was surprised by how easily the truth came out. That is exactly how I felt. Silence settled between them. The kind of silence that comes when two people realize they have more in common than they want to admit. How do you survive this? Chelsea asked finally. How do you keep going when everything you thought was real turns out to be a lie? Sloane thought about the question. Really thought about it. You find the things that are real, she said. Your family, your friends, the parts of yourself you lost while you were trying to be what he wanted. She pressed her hand against her belly. The prison door was unlocked all along. We were both our own wardens. Chelsea was quiet for a long moment. I am sorry, she finally said. For everything. For the plane, for the Instagram, for believing his lies, for not seeing you as a real person. I know. Does that make it better? No. Sloane stood, carried their cups to the sink. But it makes it true. And right now, that is enough. She called Chelsea a car, watched her climb in, watched her drive away into the rain. Then she went back to the living room, to her mother and her brother and the small, safe world they had built around her. That took courage, Rosemary said quietly, letting her in. It took something, Sloane agreed. I am not sure courage is the word. Compassion, maybe. Grace. Sloane smiled slightly. Maybe, or maybe just exhaustion. I am too tired to carry around that much anger anymore. The baby kicked, strong and insistent, demanding attention. 4 more weeks, Sloane said, resting her hand on the movement. 4 more weeks until you are here, and then we start the next chapter. She did not know what that chapter would look like, did not know how the divorce would end or what her life would become. But she knew one thing, she was not the same woman who had stood on that tarmac, not the woman who had folded baby clothes while her world collapsed, not the woman who had believed in a marriage that was never real. She was something new now, something stronger. And that, she was discovering, was more than enough. Theodore Whitmore died on a Wednesday morning, 3 hours before his granddaughter was born. Sloane was in labor when the call came. 14 hours of contractions that had started at 2 in the morning. By the time the phone rang, she was deep in the haze of pain and exhaustion that comes before the final push. Rosemary took the call in the hallway, came back into the delivery room with tears on her cheeks. Theodore? Sloane gasped between contractions. He passed peacefully in his sleep. Rosemary took her daughter's hand. But he wanted you to know something. He recorded a message for you, for Eleanor. Now? After, when you are ready. The next 3 hours were a blur of pain and breathing and the steady encouragement of Dr. Webb's voice. Push, rest, push again. You are doing great. She is almost here. At 4:17 in the afternoon, Eleanor Grace Ashford entered the world. 8 pounds, 4 ounces. Perfect. A full head of dark hair. Her father's blue eyes. Her mother's stubborn chin. She cried for exactly 30 seconds. Then she settled against Sloane's chest and looked up at her with an expression that seemed to say, finally, I have been waiting to meet you. Hello, beautiful girl. Sloane was crying too, tears of joy and relief and overwhelming love. Hello, Eleanor. I am your mama, and I have loved you since the moment I knew you existed. Griffin held her next, uncle and protector and the first man who would show her what good men look like. His hands shook as he cradled her against his chest. I am going to teach you to fly someday, little one. His voice cracked with emotion. And I am going to tell you stories about the day your mom showed everyone what strength looks like. Rosemary wept openly, happy tears, the kind that come when the worst is finally over and the best is just beginning. A week later, Theodore's attorney arrived at the house with an envelope. He wrote this the day he visited you, the attorney explained, asked me to deliver it after Eleanor was born. Sloane opened the envelope with trembling fingers. Dear Eleanor, I am writing this letter knowing I will never meet you. The doctors tell me I have weeks, maybe less, but I wanted you to have something from the grandfather you will never know. I built a fortune from nothing. A single rental property in Queens 53 years ago. I worked 18-hour days for a decade before I could afford to hire my first employee. For most of my life, I thought that was my legacy. The buildings, the money, the empire I constructed. I was wrong. My legacy is you and your mother, and the strength you will both carry forward. I named you Eleanor after my mother. She came to America with nothing but courage and the clothes on her back. She cleaned houses and took in laundry and never complained. She taught me that dignity cannot be bought or sold. It can only be earned through how you treat other people, through how you carry yourself when no one is watching. Your mother earned her dignity on a tarmac in Connecticut. She bent down and picked up a yellow onesie and folded it perfectly while her whole world was falling apart. That single moment told me everything I needed to know about the woman who would raise you. My son, your father, lost his way somewhere along the road. I do not know when or why. I have spent years trying to understand how the boy I raised became the man he is today. But I have finally accepted that some questions have no answers. Some people break in ways that cannot be fixed. You do not have to carry that brokenness, Eleanor. You can choose a different path. You can be like your mother instead. Like my mother. Like all the women in your family who faced impossible situations and found ways to survive. I have established a trust in your name. It cannot be touched by anyone until you turn 18. Not your father, not his lawyers, not anyone but you. Use it to build something real, something with substance, something that matters. Welcome to the world, Eleanor Grace. The family you are being born into is complicated, imperfect, full of mistakes and regrets and things we wish we had done differently. But we love fiercely. We protect our own. And you, little one, are very much our own. With all my love, your grandfather Theodore P.S. learned to fold things. It seems like a small skill, but your mother can tell you sometimes the small things are what hold us together when everything else is falling apart. Sloane read the letter 3 times. Then she folded it carefully, perfectly, with sharp creases the way Theodore would have wanted, and tucked it into Eleanor's baby book. One day her daughter would read it. One day she would understand. The divorce was finalized 2 months after Eleanor was born. Preston's legal team fought until the very end. But the evidence was overwhelming. The infidelity clause voided the prenup. The hidden assets were discovered and divided. Theodore's documents proved everything. In the end, Preston agreed to a settlement rather than face trial. Sloane received 40% of all assets, including the offshore accounts he had tried to hide. Full custody of Eleanor was supervised visitation twice a month. Preston never showed up for a single visit. Sloane sold the Greenwich house. Every crystal chandelier, every marble counter, every reminder of the life she had tried to build with a man who was never capable of loving anyone but himself. The money went into careful investments, into Eleanor's education fund, into the small storefront she had found in downtown Stamford, 2 blocks from her mother's house, 3 blocks from the art supply store she had loved as a teenager. 1 year later, the gallery opened. Ashford Gallery, the name on the window in elegant gold script. The walls were white. The floors were polished concrete. The air smelled like possibility and fresh beginnings. Sloane had spent the past year painting. Not the kind of art she had curated in her former life. Expensive pieces by famous artists that rich people bought to impress other rich people. This was different. This was hers. 12 canvases, each one a stage of her journey. The first painting was chaos, reds and blacks swirling into darkness. She had started it in the hospital, during those terrifying nights when she feared she might lose Eleanor before she ever got to hold her. She called it Before. The middle paintings tracked her transformation. Recognition was all sharp angles and broken mirrors. Anger burned with oranges and yellows. Vulnerability was soft grays and pale blues, tentative brushstrokes that seemed to fade at the edges. The final painting was light, blues and golds and soft whites. A mother elephant leading her baby across an endless plain, trunk to tail, inseparable. She called it After. But the painting that drew the most attention hung in the center of the gallery, the heart of the collection. The piece that made people stop and stare and sometimes cry. A yellow onesie on gray tarmac. Simple. Devastating. The elephants on the fabric reaching for each other but never quite touching. The title? What I Picked Up. Opening night was everything Sloane had hoped for and nothing she could have predicted. Wren organized the wine and the catering and the guest list. Griffin's boys ran through the gallery like small tornadoes, marveling at the colors and asking 1,000 questions. Rosemary held Eleanor and pointed at each painting, whispering explanations that the baby could not possibly understand but seemed to listen to anyway. That one is your mama showing how sad she was, sweet girl. And this one is her getting angry. And this one is when she started to feel better. See how the colors get brighter? Eleanor grabbed at the air with her tiny fists, 8 months old now, already reaching for everything, already curious about the world. The gallery filled with people, friends, family, art critics who had heard about the collection, strangers who had wandered in off the street, all of them moving through the space, looking at the paintings, reading the small cards that explained each piece. Sloane stood in the doorway and watched. This was her work, her pain, her healing, and all of it on display for anyone to see. She had been so afraid to show it, so worried that people would judge her, that they would see the broken places and think less of her. But that was not what happened at all. A woman stood in front of what I picked up for a long time, tears streaming down her face. She was young, maybe 30, with that kind of exhausted look that comes from carrying too much for too long. Finally, she approached Sloane. My husband left 6 months ago. Her voice was barely a whisper. For his secretary, I found out at a work party, in front of everyone. Sloane nodded, waiting. I do not know how to... The woman trailed off, could not find the words for everything she was feeling. Neither did I. Sloane took her hand, squeezed gently. You pick up what you can carry, you fold it neatly, and then you keep going. Does it get better? Sloane looked around the gallery, at her paintings on the walls, at her mother holding her daughter, at her brother laughing with his boys, at Ren pouring wine and making terrible jokes, at all the pieces of a life she had rebuilt from nothing. It gets different, she said. And then one day you realize different is better. Different is what you were always supposed to have. The woman smiled, just slightly, the first crack in her armor of grief. Thank you, she said, for showing all of this, for being brave enough to let people see. Thank you for looking. The woman moved on. Other visitors took her place in front of the painting, each one carrying their own stories, their own broken places, their own yellow onesies they were still learning how to fold. Later, after the guests had gone and the gallery was quiet, Sloane sat alone with Eleanor. The baby was asleep in her arms, warm and heavy and perfect. The weight of her a constant reminder of everything that mattered. We made it, little one. Sloane whispered it into her daughter's hair. We made it through the hardest part, and look what we built. Eleanor stirred, made a small sound, settled back into sleep. Somewhere in Greenwich, Preston Whitmore was probably working late, or traveling for business, or pursuing his latest young conquest. Sloane did not know and did not care. That part of her life was over. What remained was this, a gallery full of paintings, a mother who had never stopped believing in her, a brother who had finally found his courage, friends who showed up when it mattered, and a daughter who would grow up knowing that strength was not about never falling down, it was about getting back up, again and again, as many times as it took. The yellow onesie still lived in Eleanor's baby book, perfectly folded, a reminder of the worst day and the best lesson. Some things could not be fixed. Some people could not be saved. Some marriages were never meant to last. But some things, the important things, could be rebuilt, could be made new, could be transformed into something even more beautiful than what came before. Sloane stood, carried her sleeping daughter to the window, looked out at the street where people were walking past, going about their ordinary lives. This is your world, Eleanor. She pressed a kiss to her daughter's forehead. And it is full of people who will try to hurt you, who will lie to you, who will throw your things on the ground and fly away like you do not matter. Eleanor made another small sound, a sigh maybe, or a dream. But it is also full of people who will love you, who will catch you when you fall, who will sit with you in kitchens and tell you the truth even when it hurts. Sloane smiled. And you, my beautiful girl, are going to be one of the people who makes it better, one of the people who chooses kindness, who chooses strength, who chooses to keep going even when everything says you should stop. She turned back to the gallery, to her paintings, to the life she had built from the wreckage of the one she had lost. That is what I picked up from that tarmac, she whispered. Not just a onesie, but a future. Your future. Our future. The lights of the gallery glowed warm against the evening dark. Outside, the stars were coming out. The same stars she had wished on as a child. The same stars that had watched her fall in love and have her heart broken and put it back together again. She did not need to wish anymore. She had everything she needed. She had herself. And that, she was finally learning, was more than enough. And that is the story of Sloane Ashford, a woman who picked up a yellow onesie from a tarmac and turned her darkest moment into her greatest triumph. If this story moved you, if it made you feel something real, I would love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me, what would you have done in Sloane's shoes? Would you have let Chelsea inside? And if you want more stories like this one, stories about strong women who refuse to be thrown away, hit that subscribe button and tap the bell so you never miss an upload. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today, someone who is going through their own storm. Sometimes a story is exactly what we need to remember our own strength. Thank you for listening until the very end. You are the reason I tell these stories. Until next time, remember, you pick up what you can carry, you fold it neatly, and you keep going.